If you haven't figured it out and you still think that Algonquin is the best place to canoe in Ontario, despite the fact it has too many trees, it's a fact. Here to explain why you are wrong is Marian Sonntag. Marian.
Sure.
How I didn't turn them off.
Just,
you know, like
David wrote
antagonize
that. I
them.
didn't write that.
You told me to write that.
Just by a show of hands, everyone, who has paddled Killarney before? Oh, wow. Wow.
Then you know. You know.
Who hasn't paddled Killarney before?
Then you will learn.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. So Ontario Park says Killarney is one of Ontario Park's crown jewels. Does everyone agree with that? Their description is, you know, the rolling mountainous, the Cloche hills, the quartzite, the sparkling blue water. They're all very reminiscent of what would be considered a jewel. David, just for the clicker, is it working again?
Oh, you got it?
Is it working?
Okay. Try to,
And it's,
I don't know, hit a button.
there we go. Okay. So we've been paddling Killarney for about the last 10 years, my family and I. So when I say my family and I, it's my husband, my 4 kids, and our 2 dogs. So it's no 50-day trip, and it's no trip with teenagers, although now I have 4 Sherpas. But I wouldn't do 50 days. We do about 10 to 12 days throughout our canoe trip over the summer.
Where does Miami Dolphins man fit into all that?
Oh, he's coming this summer,
Oh,
hopefully. If they don't get a job, they're going to be
Easy there.
So the blue water, the rolling rock, it's all very reminiscent of the Killarney landscape. Acid rain has played a large part in the blue waters. Killarney has some of the lakes are naturally high in pH. So lakes like Nellie and OSA, they were already a little bit blue, but the acid rain kind of amplified that, and they are on a slow recovery. But what that means for us is that the lakes have fishing restrictions on some of them now because the lake population suffered with the aquatic systems being compromised. We now have fishing restrictions. So when you go to Killarney, you don't typically go there as a fishing expedition. But that being said, there is a slow recovery. The lakes are starting to come back. The clarity depths are measured every year. And you can see that top picture, that's my friend. He took his family camping. That's off of George Lake. That's a laker from last summer. So he did throw it back. So the lakes are slowly recovering. Here, and that's the bottom picture is my son, and that's just a small boat heading into the park from McGregor Bay. So it's not typically a fishing destination unless you are going and you're fishing along the lowland lakes that don't have the white rock shores.
What kind of fish is that in the upper right hand?
That's what up in the top. That was a laker. You guys told me it was a laker.
No, the top right corner.
Oh, that's top right. Yeah.
That's a heavy metal fish.
That's a heavy metal fish, yeah. Just to give you an idea of the clariness of the lake, the top right one is taken at Nellie. So I am no Kevin Callan, but we do study his books.
Thank God.
This book.
I can't handle 2.
It's not autographed, by the way.
Can't handle what?
Kevin's Killarney book has come with us on every trip that we've taken. Even if we've gone on the same route, it comes with us every single time because, you know, when we want to look at something or we want to plan next year's route, we'll just pull it out and have a look. But this was really a valuable guide for us when we were starting to paddle Killarney. And we did paddle, like Dave said, if you've paddled Algonquin, we started out paddling Algonquin. And we did slowly move from Algonquin to Killarney when we thought that, you know, the kids could do it. And we could move further into the backcountry without staying stationary all the time. And that was a shift that did bring us to Killarney. And Kevin's book helped in the way that, you know, there's a lot of, I'm just going to do the pointer here. There's a lot of access in the park where you can do a small loop at different access points off of Highway 637. And if a lot of you have paddled along there, you've probably done a lot of those smaller loops. Now that our kids are older, we have moved from those smaller loops and started connecting them and moving around and doing more around the around the top of the park. We're connecting those loops around and making a longer 10 to 12 day trip out of it. And when we do that, we kind of touch on a little bit of everything. So when we talk about the acid rain effect in the park, millions of years of billions of years of geology have gone on to create the Cloche Mountains. And what that means as a paddler in Killarney is that you are experiencing the portages. There are 13 portages in Killarney that are over 1 kilometer long. We've done 12 of them, multiple times. When the kids were smaller, we were doing the 3K, and it was 3K there to drop, 3K back to pick up the canoe, and then back again. So that 3K rapidly turned into a 9 kilometer day for us. But as the kids got older, we could add them on and do more and more. And it might seem a little daunting to look at a kilometer that is 1,000 meters, or a portage that is 1,000 meters or more long. But that's what's going to get you into some of those prettier lakes. Katie showed pictures of the aqua water or the blue water in Nelly. It is stunning. All 3 portages that lead into Nelly are over 1 kilometer long. So you're going to work to get to those pretty places. It is by no means hard. Some of them are flat, but it is not a walk in the railway portage trail in Algonquin Park. They're not like that. You will have to work, and a lot of them, what goes up comes down. So you'll be climbing either one direction, you're either going all the way up or you're coming all the way back down. And the pig. The pig is steeper than the notch. The notch is slightly longer, and there's always a bet, which do you prefer? For us, we actually prefer the 3K, the pig over the 3K. How do I play this one, David? Is it just a...
Try something.
Okay.
Did it work?
I should just point out, this is Haley. Haley has a video camera strapped to her head doing the notch. This was 5 years ago.
What? What did you say? Hold on, Summer, what did you say? Where? Will it come down? No, you didn't. No? No?
Yeah.
They're gone? Hey, you guys, there's no more cubs, right? The bear ran off. Mama with 2 cubs. You wanted to see the bear? I would have pooed my pants. So we're just gonna stay as a group now. We just saw some bears. And more's better than 2. Yeah. And what happened when they ran? Did she come back for the cubs or no? Air horn. We're just gonna maybe keep walking. Looks pretty blue.
All I can see is, wow.
So I should have prefaced, that was our 4 kids. So talking about a little bit about portage safety. So we do send them off in pairs. So it's not as if we just, we send them off. But did you notice that, let's just leave mom and dad. They left us. We were okay. But yeah, we send our kids off typically in pairs. They had we met up with them again about 3/4 of the way through the portage, and we heard the bear story. The turkey bit was because we had been at Pinery the week before, and Pinery had it was a flock of turkeys, and every time you saw something black in the bush, it was oh, it's a turkey. So yes, they do know what bears look like. And that trip in particular, they saw the mom and the 2 cubs. The very next day, we saw mom swimming 3 cubs across Nellie, and on the way back on the same day, we saw another mother and a cub. That was the most bear we've ever seen, and that is the very first incident that we've had with wildlife like that on a portage. So they did everything right. They were in pairs. They were making noise. They waited for more people to come before it was safe, and then they left us. They left the parents, and they kept going. So there was nothing upsetting. They did everything right, and that's the way that we've kind of raised them to be in the backcountry. So there was no crying or hysteria. We thought that they had handled it quite well. Again, the pig versus the 3K. The kids would rather do the pig over the 3K into Killarney. It's just a really long, monotonous portage. If you've done that, you understand. The pig is kind of like up and over the saddle, and then you're done with it. And then our reward for the pig is to stop at Topaz as well. So the rocks really do play a huge part in Killarney's landscape. And if you don't already have, along with Kevin's book, right? I would suggest getting the Killarney Canoe Guide, and it is very in-depth on the geology, the acid rain, and a lot of information that can be really helpful along with your canoe trip planning. The 3K, that's what somebody's been. Jeff was just telling me, I was talking to him earlier, that's the only portage that somebody's taken a pen and marked the distance on in Killarney, and yeah, it is a doozy. So along with the rocks, in a lot of the lowland areas, you do experience the liftovers, and there's not something that, they're not usually marked on the map, or there's something that you just come upon and move along. And I included this one because this was last year, and the year before it was a paddle, kind of just slightly lift over, get one leg out and slide over it. This last year, we're over 3 feet up from the water line. So it just shows you how rapidly the beavers can change the landscape along some of the paddling routes. This was on Howery Creek, and it was riddled with these further along to the takeout there. Again, the portages, take your time. You'll get through them. They're nothing to be afraid of, those long ones. So if you're sitting in the audience and you thought, okay, well, I've gone in and I've done Freeland and George and into Killarney and OSA, but the other ones kind of look hard, don't be afraid. Just because they're long, take your time. You can get through it. We've done it with the kids, so if the little kids can do it, so can you. So a lot of the great routes started from George. If you were looking at if I was going to tell you to go to Killarney for the very first time, a lot of you have already been there. How many people have been to the Crack? Now, did you go on a paddling trip, or did you stay in the campground and head out? How many people did it on a canoe trip? So you paddle to the portage or bushwhacked up from the top? Yeah, it's a great way to start out. A lot of the highlights along that route, paddle into Killarney. If you're lucky enough to get a campsite on there, paddle over to the portage, head up to the Crack. It's a stunning view. And I think I can show you the picture of it in person. It's 100 times better than a picture. Looking in the foreground is Killarney Lake. Further on is OSA, and then you look straight out to Bayfin on a clear day. And if you turn, you're looking out to Phillip Edward Island and Georgian Bay. Just stunning views of rolling rock that we don't see really here in southern Ontario. Another great highlight, I would say, starting out from George, is to go to OSA. Now, I know OSA is a large lake, but it only has 5 sites on it. So I've been hearing a lot on social media lately with the reservations in the system that it's really hard to get onto those lakes. Yes, it is, and it's not because it's just too busy, because the number of sites in Killarney, it doesn't change. It just means that more people are visiting there and there's just more competition for the sites. In this particular instance, I didn't get a booking on OSA. We actually chose to do a day trip over, and I would say that's a great way. If you can't get a site on the lake, day trip over from wherever you do get a campsite and go to one of the multiple little islands and swim from there. Excellent swimming. There's one island in particular that has an old ranger's cabin. You can have a look around in there. There's just remnants of it. But it's just, don't miss out on the opportunity because you didn't get that booking on your favorite site. Choose to go off to one of the smaller lakes or another side lake that might not be as popular and do your day trips. Again, I talked about doing the pig, and most people trudge through the pig and miss out on taking that side route and going to Topaz. Topaz is a beautiful little hidden jewel. It's a lake on top of a mountain, very reminiscent of like a lake that you would see out west. And again, how many people have been to Topaz? You've taken that? You paddled in? Yeah. And when we do Topaz, we typically stop there on as a stop on one of the larger routes, and we will actually stay at the pool in Bay Fin. And now that is not the most beautiful campsite. It's a nice site. It overlooks the pool, but it is very, very busy. The pool is at the end of a very long channel called Bay Fin. It's very windy, and a lot of the yachts will come in and moor in there. And our favorite was we had gone for a swim over at Topaz, come back, and we just toured the little bay in here in our canoe, and a guy looked over the edge and he goes, "Is that your shore vessel?" No, it was our canoe, and it's not our shore vessel. You see the $1 million the yachts that are coming in there. It's noisy. It's a different kind of stop on part of a journey. But we didn't let that deter us, and again, that's just a stopover if we're doing a larger loop around the top of the park. But you will not have solitude if you're camping right there at the pool. Another great highlight, I think, if you were tripping to Killarney, would be to do a loop up through Balsam and 3 Mile to David, and either bushwhack or take the portage and do the hike up to Silver Peak. It really is a stunning highlight, and one that shouldn't be missed if you have the opportunity to do it. If you hit it during peak blueberry season, you've got a snack all the way up. It's just a beautiful, stunning views. This is when the kids were younger, and we did do, we had a campsite that backed onto the hiking trail. We bushwhacked up and went from there. Another time, a couple of years ago, the larger lake in the distance there, that's Norway, we bushwhacked from that. It's a death march that we're not allowed to talk about in our family. We've tried to block that out. It was a 6-hour, but the views are stunning from the top of Silver Peak. That is looking out to Georgian Bay. If you were to turn, you would look out and see the smokestacks in Sudbury. And then Nellie. Nellie is, again, a very popular lake with only 3 campsites on it. Again, not to be deterred, we camped on Nellie, and then our next night was on Grace. The kids made us portage all the way back to Nellie for a day trip, just to get back there. So don't be deterred if you don't get a campsite on the lake. Just keep trying the off season when it might not be as busy. It is known for the stunning blue water, and you can't, the pictures, they're blue, but you can't really, until you've dipped your paddle in that water. And then, again, the underwater picture. And actually, I wanted to point out, if you haven't seen Preston, Preston's up at the front for Paddle in the Park, and it's celebrating its 10th anniversary. And this particular picture was for a paddle point that we did in the contest a couple of years ago, and it was for an air guitar. And well, my husband and daughter decided to take it one step further and do an underwater air guitar for that particular paddle point. But it just shows you the clarity of the water. And in this campsite, you swim out, and then it's just a straight drop off. And it almost looks like somebody had a spaceship had just slammed in the middle of the lake and went through. And when you're swimming over those rocks and looking down, you can't see the bottom, but you can see on the rock wall, you can see the crevices and the caves in. And you'll notice the goggles. That is one thing that the kids will pack, and we don't complain about the weight. When you're swimming in Nellie, take a pair of goggles. It really is worth it to swim the shoreline and see the clear blue water. Again, the reflections are just, they're amazing. So if those were the highlights, what would we choose for more solitude? In saying that Killarney is a busy park, yes, it's a busy park, but again, if you go off the beaten path just a little bit, you can go and see those highlights, but still enjoy the solitude of lakes where you're not having canoe traffic going by. And I have to say, by no means, when I say canoe traffic, it's not Canoe Lake in Algonquin on a July long weekend. It is nothing like that. I don't think we've ever experienced any kind of waits at the portages in Killarney. Usually we don't see anyone on the portages. Those bears were probably, you know, one of the few encounters with anything on the portage at the same time as us. If you're looking for solitude, Great Mountain is a wonderful lake. If you want to have your own private lake with one campsite on it, on the bottom corner, that is the portage into Sandy, and again, it's a campsite with only one, on a lake with only one campsite, and you're looking at Silver Peak. On Nellie, if you were to go up and climb any of the white rock faces, you're enjoying views that the Group of Seven painted. Norway is a beautiful little gem also. Again, you can bushwhack up to Silver Peak if you so like to do so, but it's another quiet lake with the blue water. The sunsets are amazing. And then leading into the Group of Seven. So in this particular picture, we had chosen to try and look for the Carmichael's Rock. And the first time we didn't find it, and it was our anniversary, a thunderstorm came in, so we turned back, waited in the storm, and then paddled back out to look for it again, and we found it. We climbed up and made our way over, and it was our anniversary. So the sun came out, and we got to sit and enjoy the view from Carmichael's Rock. This is on Grace Lake, if you're not familiar with the area, and you can see the difference between the lower picture and the top, where the growth over the years since the two have been taken, and how more white rock was exposed. Grace is a wonderful place to go and try and reconnect if you're into artwork in the Group of Seven, and to look into the inspiration that Killarney provided them, and still does. This is a piece of artwork by Danielle Gardner. She is an artist that is inspired by Killarney. This is Carmichael's Rock. And Danielle works with the Friends of Killarney Provincial Park as an artist in residence every summer. So if you've been in Killarney's office, you've probably seen her artwork displayed in there. And I think, is she presenting at the Winter Symposium this fall as well? Again, some of the vistas. This tree is on the top of Nellie, but it's very reminiscent of what you would see at the top of the crack. The white rock leading up to the same tree. So the inspiration, the landscape of Killarney is everywhere. The Group of Seven left their imprint at Trout Lake, known as OSA, and I think, Bill, you mentioned that OSA is the only lake in Ontario.
I was told by the NUG staff at Killarney that it's the only lake in Ontario that's an acronym.
That's an acronym, yeah, for the Ontario Society of Artists. And again, the same rocks. You can see the different lights of the day. Top taken at lunchtime, and the bottom, the glow from the sunset. So inspiration is everywhere. And if you've ever sat and watched it, the imprint that it leaves on you that's kind of what keeps drawing us back. This is just a little compilation of some of the landscapes in Killarney.
Let's see what.
See how hard my daughter works so I can take some video.
So I hope that those of you that haven't hit any of those spots, some of those lakes, get to hit them in the year and paddle them in the future. And thank you very much.